6-5 in 10 innings, the win clinched the NL East title for the Phillies. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
I'm gonna try to keep it coming. Things ain't all.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, 2 conversations. Up first, why a second U.S. drone attack, which killed 11 civilians on a boat off the coast of Venezuela, has raised the threat level for black folk in the Caribbean and beyond. We'll talk to Carrie Lee, Senior Fellow of Strategic Democracy Initiatives at the German Marshall Fund. On the B side of our 2, Peggy Carr, former commissioner at the National Center for Education Statistics, who was fired by Donald Trump, sounds the alarm on the quality of government data these days and the impact specifically on our nation's children. In our third hour, Robin Allison Davis, Emmy Award-winning journalist, takes us inside her new book, Surviving Paris, a memoir of healing in the city of light. For all of you who are maybe curating your escape plan, we'll talk about that in our third hour. But in this first hour, let's talk politics with professor, philosopher, and legal analyst Tim Golden. Before I bring Philly's best, Mr. Golden, on the line, there are a number of clips I want to play, in this first hour. I want to start with this because this was just sort of mind-boggling, not surprising. But J.D. Vance, that J.D. Vance, vice president, sat in yesterday for Charlie Kirk. The vice president of the United States hosted Charlie Kirk's podcast and invited reporters into his space to watch him do this show live. Here's some sound now of your vice president sitting in for a podcaster named Charlie Kirk.
Welcome back to the Charlie Kirk Show. This is Vice President J.D. Vance. Joining me now is Stephen Miller, White House Deputy Chief of Staff, dear friend of mine and dear friend of Charlie Kirk's. And before I get into the nitty-gritty of what I wanted to talk with Stephen about, there's a lot of questions about the investigation, where we are in the investigation. I want to be respectful to the FBI's process, but just know that we are on top of this, and the entire administration is trying to do as much as possible to find everything that we can about what led to this, about how we got here, and of course, ultimately, how an assassin took Charlie's life. I wanted to zoom out with Stephen a little bit and talk about all of the ways that we're trying to figure out how to prevent this festering violence that you see on the far left from becoming even more and more mainstream. A lot of people are very worried about how we got here in the first place. And you have the crazies on the far left who are saying, oh, Stephen Miller and J.D. Vance, they're going to go after constitutionally protected speech. No, we're going to go after the NGO network that foments, facilitates, and engages in violence. That's not okay. Violence is not okay in our system, and we want to make it less likely that that happens. Walk me through, at a high level, like what you and I have been working on, what the whole administration has been working on to try to make sure that we don't reward and promote this craziness.
The organized doxing campaigns, the organized riots, the organized street violence, the organized campaign dehumanization, vilification, posting people's addresses, combining that with messaging that's designed to trigger and incite violence, and the actual organized cells that carry out and facilitate the violence. It is a vast domestic terror movement. And with God as my witness, we are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these networks and make America safe again for the American people. It will happen, and we will do it in Charlie's name.
So, by any other read, you just heard top officials, as high as you can get in the Trump administration, vowing a crackdown on left-wing organizations, democratic, progressive organizations, who they deem fomenting violence in this country. Now, the first thing about that, Tim, that just jumps out at me, and I suspect you heard the same thing, as did our audience, got a bright audience, and for that I am grateful. When you hear J.D. Vance say, violence is not okay in our system, violence is not okay in our system, the first thing that comes to mind is, what was January 11th? If violence is not okay in our system, how did y'all define January 6th, thank you. How did y'all define January the 6th and all of the pardons that came thereafter? So just to hear him utter the phrase, and for that matter, Trump said the same thing, that violence is not okay in our system. Political violence has no place in America, and they apparently forgot about January 6th. That's where I want to start. Tim Golden, take it away.
Yes, Tavis, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think there is an overall mendacity or dishonesty occurring now in the national conversation around political violence in this country. Because if you go back to January 6th, 2021, there were multiple people who died on that day.
That's right.
And so that is unacceptable, right? That's an act of political violence. What we have done, Tavis, in this country is we have replaced the morality of right and wrong with the expediency of right and left. And so we remain trapped in the polarities of political ideology, and we refuse to honestly engage matters in a virtuous way. The murder of Charlie Kirk is reprehensible, and so was January 6th.
Mm-hmm.
But you only see it that way if you have a genuine moral compass, which neither the administration nor President Trump seems to have. President Trump and the administration tolerate political violence to the extent that it is politically beneficial to him, which is not a moral stance at all. I think the two things happened on January 6th.
Hold that thought, Tim Golden. Tim Golden, hold that thought. Two things happened on January 6th. We will pick up on that, but I'm already ready to unpack. Yesterday's show was on fire with Daniel Black and Cornel West just dropping bars everywhere. Here we start this day with Tim Golden telling us that we have replaced morality with regard to right and wrong with expediency for left and right. We have traded morality when it comes to right and wrong for expediency when it comes to left and right politics. That's worth unpacking. Just getting started with Tim Golden for the hour on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley. Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
This is the story of the one. As a custodial supervisor at a high school, he knows that during cold and flu season, germs spread fast. It's why he partners with Grainger to stay fully stocked on the products and supplies he needs, from tissues to disinfectants to floor scrubbers. All so that he can help students, staff, and teachers stay healthy and focused. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Severe from Vicks.
Sinex Severe nasal spray.
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Severe instantly relieves nasal congestion and works 6 times faster than nasal decongestant tablets. The 12 hours of relief allow you to get back to the moments that matter without congestion.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Try Sinex Severe from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community-focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Tim Golden, so it's the Tavis and Tim show for the rest of the hour, or the Tim and Tavis show, more accurately, for the rest of the hour. It's his conversation, not mine. All right, you were saying a moment ago that 2 things happened on January the 6th. Pick it up there, sir.
Yes, I think, Tavis, that on January 6th, what happened was President Trump fomented, I heard that word foment used by Vice President Vance, and no one fomented violence any more than President Trump did in the days leading up to January 6th. And then, second, on January 6th, knowing what was happening, he did nothing. People forget that President Trump was under criminal investigation and indictment for his actions on January 6th, and he was never exonerated of in that investigation. The investigation was terminated because he won the presidential election. And so we have to think very carefully about what happened on January 6th as an instance of political violence, and the refusal to engage that in any meaningful way in our national conversation reflects poorly on just how far we have strayed from an abiding sense of what is moral to a political sense of what is expedient. And that's what I think really must be overcome. We also refuse to engage, honestly, the fact that we have a president who purports to commit himself to law and order, but is himself a convicted felon 34 times over. Again, the president essentially received a suspended sentence, and he was not cleared of those charges. This is not hyperbole. This is not exaggeration. He had a trial. He was entitled to all the constitutional rights of a criminal defendant, and a jury of his peers, almost literally in New York City, where he's from, found him guilty 34 times of felonies. So I think any responsible discussion of curbing political violence or law and order in our national conversation has to begin, one, with the fact that the president himself is a convicted felon, and two, with the reality of January 6th that was subsequently followed by another act of political violence, which was him pardoning and releasing the January 6th rioters who he termed were political prisoners. That is a classic example of someone doing something because he thinks it benefits him politically instead of doing something because it's right. I'm not, as a lawyer myself, you know, we can have conversations about the breadth of the president's pardon power, but that kind of legal conversation is really falling far short of a moral standard, not of whether or not he legally can pardon people, but the question is, should he morally have pardoned those rioters and outlaws from January 6th? And the answer to the moral question, I think, is no. But sadly, we abide in the realm of law and politics in which morality takes a back seat.
To your point about morality taking a back seat, I was thinking as you were talking about the words of Dr. King, his entreaty, and King said years ago, as you recall, that you cannot legislate morality. Those are King's words, that we cannot legislate morality. So I'm keeping that in mind, and no naivete here, you've unpacked this quite nicely. But given that we cannot legislate morality, what happens when you have a president that has absolutely no moral compass? And I say none because I think you and I would agree that every president prior to him had a questionable moral compass on any number of issues. I had a conversation, I'll never forget it as long as I live. I had a conversation with the great scholar Lewis Baldwin. Lewis Baldwin is now retired at Vanderbilt, but is one of the most noted King scholars in this country and indeed the world. And Lewis Baldwin and I were in a conversation for an hour and just a rich dialogue about King's moral compass. And right near the end of the conversation, like with literally 3 minutes to go, Lewis Baldwin said to me, Tavis, I've lived long enough and I have studied long enough and I have processed long enough these notions of morality to come to a conclusion that I now want to share with you after 70, 80 years of living. I froze, and I said, I need to hear this. I said, what, Professor Baldwin, is that conclusion? He said, I've come to the conclusion that I do not believe that a true Christian can be president of the United States. I said, say that again. He said, I said, say that again. He said, I have come to believe that it is impossible for a true Christian to be president of the United States. And I said, Dr. Baldwin, why would you do that to me with 3 minutes left to go in this conversation? We eventually got back to that somewhere down the road. But their Christology notwithstanding, these presidents end up doing things and making decisions that make you question their moral compass. And yet we're now in an era with a president who has he don't know what a moral compass is. And we can talk about it here on the radio or any place else, but there are real world consequences to living in a space with a leader who has no moral compass. Pick it up from there and run with it, Tim.
Yeah, that's right, Tavis. There are serious consequences. When you have, morality demands something of us that the law does not. We have a tendency to look to law and to political institutions to fix our problems, when the reality is legal and political institutions, as valuable as they are and as important as their norms are, they are not equipped to do the hard work, what I like to call the hard work of heart work, right? We can we can condemn Dred Scott and we can legislate Jim Crow out of existence, but that does not change the disposition of a white person toward me, right?
Mm-hmm.
That does not make a white person's heart any more tender toward me because a law has been passed. And that said, legal and political institutions are affected by moral judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a president whose moral calculus is, how does this benefit me? Right? When the sine qua non of executive decision making is this in my best interest? Then what you have done is you have essentially you're governing with an executive egotism that subordinates the people who you were elected to represent. If you notice what's happening, Tavis, President Trump ran on lowering prices and lowering inflation, and nothing has got lower. In fact, things are moving in the other direction. And while he is busy on a revenge tour, doing everything that he can to eliminate due process for brown people and black people, for that matter, trying to fire people from the Federal Reserve Board because he doesn't like their politics. And as he goes through all of these sort of vengeful actions using government as a vehicle, the people who voted for him, many of them poor, many of them white, right? Many of them Latino, who thought he was going to help them, now find themselves on the receiving end of policies that aren't helping them at all. And so the devastating consequence of this, of a president whose moral compass is purely egoistic, is something that I think we're living through right now. And I think we've only been roughly 3.5 months in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm sorry. We have roughly 3.5 years left, and I don't know how we make it for the next 3.5 years. Frankly, I think it only gets worse from here because the president has no moral compass.
So you mentioned hard and heart, and my mind went. Speaking of Dr. King, my mind went to his baby daughter Bernice.
Yes.
Who wrote a book some years ago called Hard Questions, Heart Answers. An amazing book that Bernice wrote, and we spent a lot of time talking about it. But the title of the book is, and I recommend it to anybody who's never read the book, Hard Questions, Heart Answers. I want to connect that back to this morality conversation that we were having. No matter how questionable the moral compass may be of any president of the United States, and whether Dr. Baldwin is right that a true Christian cannot be president of these United States, what I'm certain of is that being president of these United States means every day that you have to deal with hard questions, and sometimes those hard questions require heart answers. Now, when you have no moral compass and you frankly have no heart, we got a real problem here.
That's right.
I was hopeful, and I recall vividly the Republican National Convention, as you recall, back in Milwaukee, when Donald Trump, on the night of his nomination acceptance speech, started out. For the first 5, 7, 8 minutes, I don't want to say enthralled, but I was on the edge of my seat. Because in the first 10 minutes, Donald Trump sounded like a changed man. If you don't remember this, you can Google it. It's everywhere. Just go back and watch Donald Trump in the first minutes of his speech in Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention. And if you stop in the first few minutes, you'd believe that Donald Trump was a changed man. I was hopeful that assassination attempt on his life might create some softness where we could get some hard answers to these hard questions, might redirect him to the moral compass that he may have had at some point in time. But I'll be doggone if he hasn't gone 180 degrees in the other direction. And I don't know. I don't know. There have been 2 or 3 times in my life where I thought I was dead. Thank God for Jesus, I survived. But I've never had, with all the death threats that I've faced in my career, I've never faced an assassination attempt on my life. But I would like to think that if that ever happened to me, that would fundamentally change me, fundamentally change the way I see the world and my place in it. But Donald Trump has doubled down on his narcissism. He's doubled down on everything after the attempt on his life, and that I don't quite understand. I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psych. I'm not any of that. But what's your read of that reality, that he's gone as far as he can in the other direction, not toward his moral compass, not toward having a softened heart, but the other way, Tim?
So I think that President Trump has a certain infatuation with power. I think to serve in the office of the presidency, you have to some extent, be power-oriented, right? You have to have a certain kind of charisma, and perhaps that's what the good professor was sharing with you, because infatuations with power are incompatible with the humility that the gospel demands of us, right? We don't seek power for power's sake. This is one of the reasons why Jesus told Peter, "Get thee behind me, Satan," because Peter wanted power without responsibility. And I think that's part of the problem. One of the things I think needs to be analyzed in the context of President Trump, because I don't think you can talk about the moral implications of the American presidency without a radical engagement with American history. And if you're going to do that, then you have to talk about white supremacy. And so I think one of the things Donald Trump discovered as he descended the escalator a decade ago now was that he could gain political power. There's that power infatuation again, if he appealed to the underbelly, to the racist underbelly of American politics. And that's exactly what he did. And he came to understand that the racism that he appeals to will keep him in power. He struck a vein. And whereas a lot of us would like to think that making those kinds of political appeals would make you unsuccessful in politics, what we've seen is in the resiliency of American racism and white supremacy is that those kinds of appeals have propelled him to a level of political popularity that he desperately wants to hold on to. And so hence his doubling and tripling down even after an attempt on his life.
I want to talk when we come forward about the night side of America that you just referenced. Number one, I want to talk about, I'd put it this way, but the point that Tim was just making in my mind suggests that this is the ultimate Jedi mind trick. Donald Trump trying to flip the frame, J.D. Vance, Stephen Miller trying to flip the frame, that is, that, you tell us that political violence has no place in America, but, you didn't feel that way on January 6th or about January 6th, and now you're telling us that you're going after left organizations, after left groups. We're pushing further and further and deeper into authoritarianism, deeper and deeper into fascism every single day. And what they said yesterday, sitting in for Charlie Kirk on this podcast, is just, Tim used the word earlier, reprehensible. I'm going to borrow that for the moment. A great deal more to cover with Tim Golden when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. President Trump says the U.S. military has carried out another strike on a drug boat from Venezuela, speaking to reporters in the Oval Office Monday afternoon.
We know what time they were leaving, when they were leaving, what they had, and all of the other things that you'd like to have.
In a Truth Social post, Trump called the targets narco-terrorists, saying 3 were killed and cargo, cocaine and fentanyl, was destroyed. The Trump administration is shifting nearly $500 million to historically black colleges and tribal universities while cutting funds for other minority-serving institutions. Additional money will go for civic education and charter schools as the Education Department faces a 15% budget cut. And the body of a black man, 21-year-old DeMartravion Trey Reed, a Delta State University student, was found hanging from a tree on campus. Authorities are investigating amid speculation of foul play. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Ignite your afternoons at Waba Grill's $5 happy hour with our 5-piece pork veggie dumplings and a value-sized premium beverage drink, like our tangy passion fruit lemonade. Enjoy $5 happy hour weekdays after 3 p.m. Only at Waba Grill.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Chargers are 2-0 after beating the Raiders Monday night in Vegas 20-9. 3 interceptions by the Chargers defense, which also kept the Raiders out of the end zone. The Raiders were limited to 3 field goals. The Chargers are worried about linebacker Khalil Mack. He left the game in the first quarter with what could be a serious elbow injury. Mack will have an MRI exam Tuesday morning. A couple of surprising stats in the NFL after week 2 of the regular season. The Kansas City Chiefs are 0-2 for the first time since 2014, the last time they did not make the playoffs. The 2-0 Indianapolis Colts are the first team since 1966 to play their first 2 games without having to punt. The Colts are averaging 31 points per game and have made 3 of 5 fourth down conversions. The Dodgers lost at home to Philadelphia 6-5 in 10 innings. The win clinched the NL East title for the Phillies. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
Tavis Smiley is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33, and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yay! Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Tim Golden, professor, philosopher, lawyer, all that and then some, as you can probably tell from his sobering analysis. Always delighted to be in conversation with him. I want to come back to a few things that you've sort of teed up earlier in this conversation, Tim. The first is what I would refer to as the night side of America. I was just reading a piece day before yesterday, about the conditions that we find ourselves wrestling with right now. You mentioned history earlier, that we can't have this conversation devoid of history. So I was reading a piece yesterday, I think, about the conditions that we are dealing with right now. And this author, this historian, was comparing this moment to the conditions that existed just before the Civil War. And you see where I'm going here. I was completely struck by the state of this, democracy then and the state of our experiment in democracy now. And the conditions are so eerily similar. I don't want to waste time detailing that. I'm talking to a guy, Tim Golden, who understands exactly where I'm headed here. But talk to me about the conditions now, the conditions then, the similarity between the two, and how much more we are about to experience if something doesn't change the night side of America.
Well, Tavis, the most eerie similarity and the most tragic similarity is that in all the years since before the Civil War, we still have plaguing us today what plagued us then, which is a disturbing polarization centered around black people. A polarization that existed then centered around black people on the issue of slavery. And let's just understand that in American history, slavery in the United States is a race-based system. And although it was abolished, the objective of the southern states subsequent to emancipation was, in the words of the late Justice Thurgood Marshall, to keep black people in as near a condition to slavery as possible, right? And that was based on race. And so what do we have today that is so eerily and tragically similar? Here today, and Ida B. Wells routinely condemned the injustice of lynching because it represented a violation of America's own legal principles. What do we have today? We have Latinos who are being shipped out of the country without due process. Or as they're being shipped out of the country without due process, you have President Trump making overtures to white South Africans to essentially import them to America and fast-track them to citizenship. On top of that, you now have Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene calling for I don't know the best word for this, but she's essentially calling for a secession. She's calling for the right to separate itself from the left. And again, I feel like I'm coming full circle here. Since when do right and left supplant right and wrong? I think that white supremacy has deluded a lot of whites into thinking that America is just about which ideology you adhere to or which ideology you align with. But ideology in that context is a tragic way of obfuscating because you want to avoid genuine moral responsibility. See, morality doesn't just allow us to do the things that we think are convenient. It demands more of us than that. And because we've never been able to adequately confront our moral problems, despite voices of conscience throughout American history, many of them white, but most of them black, that have sought to bring America's reality up to the lofty level of its rhetoric, we have not made progress. Here I'm reminded, I'm teaching African-American philosophy this semester, and my students, I have them reading Derek Bell, right? And they're reading Derek Bell because Derek Bell makes this point ad nauseum in his work, that racism is permanent, and it's permanent because what it takes to address it is something that we're not willing to do. And so we find ourselves in the 21st century at a flashpoint and facing a crisis that we did in the 19th century, just before the Civil War.
You have them reading what, Faces at the Bottom of the Well?
Actually, I have them reading the first chapter of his book of his first book, And We Are Not Saved, The Elusive Quest for Racial Justice. And I have them reading today. In fact, we're going to be discussing the first chapter, which is called The Chronicle of the Great Constitutional Contradiction, in which the heroine of Derek Bell's fictional discourse, it's called historical fiction. He brings a black woman to the Constitutional Convention to warn the founders that the compromise of black humanity that was the Three-Fifths Compromise, if they did it, it would haunt America throughout its entire existence. And so putting that kind of warning in the mouth of a black woman is, I think, a radical way for Derek Bell to make his point about the permanence of American racism.
I wish I could audit that class today, man. That's why I want to know what was on the syllabus, man. I see what you're doing. Insulted is the only word I can think of off the top of my head, but maybe you give me a better word. But how insulted should we all be? I don't just mean black people. How insulted should we all be at this Jedi mind trick that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller are trying to play on us? This flipping of the frame on everything that was, at least we thought, was foundational in this country. How insulted should we be by the Jedi mind trick?
We should be so insulted by the Jedi mind trick, Tavis, that we are motivated, highly motivated, as if never before, to mobilize, to organize, to vote, to engage in whatever legitimate acts of political resistance we can engage in order to stem the tide of this kind of violence that is about to be unleashed from the far right. So I think being insulted is one thing, and I think we should feel the way we feel about this, but we have to find a way to channel those feelings into a level of political organization that matches the degree of oppression that is headed our way from these kinds of bad actors in government. You
teach this stuff. You are learned in this area, so you know that part of authoritarianism is a witch hunt. There's going to be a witch hunt somewhere in that process, right? So what I heard Stephen Miller and what I heard J.D. Vance say in that clip we used at the start of this conversation was that that the witch hunt is in full effect. And they are going to be looking for and chasing and cracking down on what they termed left-wing terrorism. When we come forward with Tim Golden, I want to ask him what he expects based on what they told us. And I'm asking this in part because, Maya Angelou, as we all know, said famously, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. Donald Trump has shown us who he is. He's told us what he wants to do, and everything he said, he is at least attempting to follow through on. And so I'm going to take J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller at their word, given the clip that we played again at the top of this conversation. I'm going to take them at their word. My question for Tim is, if I do that, what should I expect? What should we be looking for, looking out for? What should we be bracing? Somebody said brace for effects. What should we be bracing ourselves for? That for Tim Golden when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from black black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Loss Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of black land loss before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black Narrative Archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandloss.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone, and should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Tim Golden. That's the Tim and Tavis show here for a few more minutes. Tim, I'm going to hold on that question about bracing for effects in a moment, and we'll get to that. I'm looking at questions popping in to my feed here, and I am fascinated by this one. You've heard me say many times I have a really bright audience, and you got a bright audience. They ask smart questions, sometimes better than the questions I'm asking. And here's one that I find absolutely fascinating. If you listen to this program regularly, and I hope that means you, we have talked in the past about James Carville. You'll recall James Carville, Tim Golden, inviting progressives to leave the Democratic Party. That commentary from James Carville made the rounds. We discussed it on this program. So here's the question for Tim Golden. Mr. Golden, if centrist Democrats like James Carville want progressives out of the party, is Trump's crackdown on the left doing Carville and corporate Democrats a favor?
Theoretically, I think the answer to that question is yes, although I think that what we can expect from this will be about as precise and targeted as President Trump's removal policy toward Latinos. In other words, he's not going to approach this problem making nuanced political distinctions like the one that is made in the question, right? He's going to label every Democrat as a Democrat, and the idea of being centrist or being left-wing, I don't think is going to matter to him. If the past is prologue, and I think it is, I think we can expect about as nuanced an approach to what they're cooking up on the far right as what we have seen in his policy initiatives, and that we know is not an organized or nuanced approach at all. I don't think anybody is safe.
Yep. Tim used the phrase cooking up, and so my mind goes to The Rock. Can you smell what The Rock is cooking? Can we smell what Trump and Vance and Stephen Miller are cooking? And if you can smell it, what should we expect? What's coming, Tim Golden?
I think what we should expect is a continued flurry of executive orders. Tavis, this is something that I don't think enough people are talking about. Right now, we are living in a country that is being governed by two of its three branches. Congress is doing nothing, and the president is governing by executive order and targeting people through his executive orders, and the Supreme Court, through its emergency docket and the rulings it delivers there, have allowed these executive orders to upend the status quo to such a degree that at least for right now, the Supreme Court has become President Trump's private legislature. In a functional sense. And so I think going forward, we can expect more of that. We can expect more rhetoric that is, as I said a moment ago, it won't be nuanced. It won't be precise. It will just be blanket attacks, rhetorical attacks on the left. There may be an obligatory investigation or two of a left-wing organization to make things appear to be legitimate, like Trump is doing, and Trump will use the Justice Department in the manner that he accused Joe Biden of using the Justice Department, to go after his political enemies that, frankly, for him right now, especially in the wake of the Charlie Kirk killing, are self-proclaimed, right? So we can expect more action, we can expect less evidence, and we can expect more action based on little to no evidence at all.
So, Tim, a couple weeks, I want to tee up my exit question here. We'll let you get to it when we come forward here in just a second, our remaining moments with you. But I told this audience a couple of weeks ago that we're going to have a series of conversations. We've been having them as we push toward the end of this month. Why? Because at the end of this month, the government shutdown happens again. They passed that bill to get us to this point, but at the end of September, if some Democrats do not align with Republicans, then the government shuts down. And so the question is, how should Democrats play in the sandbox right about now? Everybody saw the piece that Ezra Klein wrote for the New York Times last week. Everybody's been talking about this piece that Ezra wrote, offering his suggestion, his thoughts, his advice about how Democrats ought to show up or not in this particular moment. So the ultimate question is, what do Democrats do at the end of the month? Are they going to get the backs, side with Republicans once again, as Chuck Schumer asked them to do last time? Are we going to do that again? Put another way, are we, quoting my friend Cornel West, who I see stormed off of Piers Morgan's show last night. That's trending everywhere. Cornel West, that's not his flow. So I got to see what happened that made Cornel West storm off of Piers Morgan last night after being on this program yesterday. He was on CNN on Abby Phillips, I think, last night. But something happened on Piers Morgan. He just stormed off the set last night. I got to find out what that is. But Cornel West would say funding fascism. Are Democrats at the end of this month going to fund fascism again? Look at the way that Trump is showing up right now. He's telling you he's coming after the left. He's declared war on the left. Are Democrats going to show up for him at the end of this month? That's the question for Tim Golden when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Tim Golden. I've got 3 minutes left, and I will yield it all to the professor, philosopher, and legal analyst who I have been delighted to have had on this program in this hour, as I always am. So we got a moment of reckoning, if I can put it that way, Tim Golden, coming at the end of this month. The Democrats have to decide whether or not they're going to give Donald Trump and Republicans what they need, the votes they need to keep this government afloat. But if this is the kind of government that we're funding, if this is the kind of fascism that we're funding, where they come out yesterday and tell us they're coming after the left, they're coming after organizations on top of all the other nonsense, Democrats, again, have a moment of reckoning at the end of this month. What say you, sir?
So I think that Ezra Klein's point is well taken. I think any action or inaction on funding the government needs to move beyond what we see as a fascist takeover to consider parts of the government that are still functional and that may still affect many people in our community. For example, if the government is shut down and there's no funding for it, the courts essentially shut down. In those courts are criminal defendants, many of them Black and Latino defendants who have court-appointed lawyers, many of them Black and Latino who have a genuine concern for justice that really operates independently of the president's policies. I understand the number that Donald Trump is doing on the American government, but I also understand that a government shutdown would essentially grind the courts to a halt. It would prevent lots of Black and Latino criminal defendants from having their cases properly litigated before the courts, and it would prevent the lawyers who represent them under the Criminal Justice Act free of charge. It would prevent them from being paid adequately or paid at all. And so I think we have to consider the impact. I don't want to cut off our nose despite the face.
No, and I recognize, I'm out of time here. Basically, I recognize that there's going to be some pain, no question about it. And your argument is basically, and I'm not trying to offend you in any way, but your argument is basically the argument that Chuck Schumer made, that if you shut government down, this is exactly what happens. He made that court argument. I just think at some point you have to draw the line in the sand. Yes, there's going to be some pain, but I can't imagine that things could get much worse than they are right now. If we drew the line and said you have to do better. But that's a debate we're going to have for the rest of this month. I hear your point of view, and I accept it. It's a legitimate point of view. And I'm not saying I have all the answers either. I'm just saying that if we're going to continue funding fascism, if this is what we're going to get for funding a government, then what good is the government doing us if they're using and manipulating government to hurt and harm so many of us? I digress for now. We'll get Tim Golden back on again, of course, in the weeks to come. But we'll be talking about this with a number of people between now and September because, again, it's a moment of reckoning. Democrats have we talked earlier about hard questions and hard answers. They got a tough decision to make at the end of this month. I digress for now. Tim Golden, appreciate you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Tavis. Take care.
Man, always an honor having you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. President Trump says the U.S. military has carried out another strike on a drug boat from Venezuela, speaking to reporters in the Oval Office Monday afternoon.
We know what time they were leaving, when they were leaving, what they had, and all of the other things that you'd like to have.
In a Truth Social post, Trump called the targets narco-terrorists, saying 3 were killed and cargo, cocaine and fentanyl, was destroyed. The Trump administration is shifting nearly $500 million to historically black colleges and tribal universities while cutting funds for other minority-serving institutions. Additional money will go for civic